Okay, so today we're going to be reading from page. If you are following along in the book, this is page 246. It's pretty wild. We are, I don't know, even just looking at it in the, we've like this far through. It's like kind of wild. The orientation of the seventh hub. So I'm going to read through these and see what comes up. I'd actually recorded another one, but there was another sound issue. So I'm re-recording this. And one of the things with this is I can't exactly remember what I talked about. So so I don't know if it's there. Yeah. Well, what are we gonna do? So we're just gonna get into it. So I'm gonna start reading here about seventh hub orientation and just making, one note that what we're starting to do here, and this is pointing to this kind of infinite loop of this book, is that chapter 3 in part 1 is relates very strongly to this. And also in this particular hub, we're doing it's like a counter. Well, anyway, actually, that's like, that has like no juice to it. I'm like talking and it's like feeling like bleh. So I'm going to just go for it. So the orientation. So the physical location in this hub is the top of the head and the subtly felt sense of the body. We'll talk about the different the layers of sensation coming up right here. But one of the things that you can draw particular attention to is when you have like tingling on the top of your head, and those types of sensations that can happen. But once we get a little bit further here, we'll get into it. So the first cycle of this hub, the seventh hub, is it's approximately late adolescence and into adulthood. Now, as you know, so the prefrontal cortex, in terms of the nervous system development, the prefrontal cortex finishes its development fully by age 25. And as previously mentioned, the seventh hub does not necessarily fully develop in all people. And this is, so this is something, hold on, this is sort of annoying, closing this thing out. Okay. So as previously mentioned, when the lower hubs have reduced capacity and significant aspects that need to be reconciled, the fifth, sixth, and seventh hub will kind of sort of like concede to those hubs. So in terms of conceding to be more physically safe, to feel safe by not speaking up and saying what's on your mind, not in terms of like suppressing emotions, reduced emotional literacy, if is going to impact this hub in many ways. And then with the third hub, with power and the sense of personal power, if we do not occupy a sense of personal power, and where we need others, we need external validation in various forms to be able to create that, to sort of like prop us up, then the ability to like speak with truth and authenticity that's naturally arising is going to be impacted, and even to see. So one of the things with the sixth hub and the second hub is that, so seeing is it can often be about blocking strong emotions about difficult things. So those are connected. And then in the fourth hub, we're dealing with the fear of ostracism. So like speaking up and differentiating oneself is impacted there, because it's like, that the sense that love, needing love, again, this is like really about external validation. And when there's developed capacity in these hubs, that need is diminished, and the true force of love. The true force of love is not a dependency. It's actually like a connection that's an expansion. It's not like, it's not like you're half and two halves creating a whole. It's like two wholes, like creating an emergent property where there's just something greater, emergent property being that. Okay, so the task of this hub is inquiry to navigate paradox and ambiguity and nuance. So this is, there's that. The rights of this hub is the right to ask questions and the right to receive answers. The identity of this hub is I am what I know, I am what I believe. And just as a reminder, we'll get more into the different identities by hub in this particular chapter. But just a reminder that our identity has multiple facets to it. So in all of those facets, we're looking at facets of it. So it's not that, one thing is, that they all contribute to our sense of and sensibility about like who we are in terms of our identity. But I am what I know, I am what I believe. And one of the things about adaptations in holding patterns is that they can, and actually we'll also talk about this coming up in part 3, which is distributions, like weighted distributions in particular hubs that make some of these identities feel like they're or that have them dominating our sense of who we are and even the expression of who we are. And the reconciliation of this hub is transformation through consciousness. And it's important, and it's mentioned because I've already read this with a no sound, is that the Parinama method is not possible without some activation of the 7th hub, where we're using our consciousness to actually do this reconciliation, where we're going back, because the part of you that is experiencing this is through the actualization of the 7th hub. And also to this point that Parinama method isn't really for young people. So when young folks are asking me, about about it, who are below their first cycle, like that are, like 25 and below, the way I look at it is that you're still developing your context. Not to say that you cannot, but in terms of like kind of the order of operations and the facility required to be able to do the reconciliation and go back, it's almost like you're sort of like forming your fully contextualized, or like that you're forming the first context and then working off of that. So there's that, Okay, so this hub is often highly adapted from the intellectual restrictions of punishing perfectionism, rigid certainty, and limiting belief systems, beliefs that feel very real. The 3 predominant experiential layers of our body are experienced through conscious awareness in this hub. So let's just get into it. I did a lot of sort of framing in the last time I read this. I'm just going to go for it. So the gross, and this is spelled Grosse. So gross in terms of like the sort of opposing notion to like sublime or subtle. So it's like so sensory stimuli. So this is the body. This is the felt experience in the body, and this is pointing to 3 layers of the experience of it. Is sensory stimuli that's like with stiffness, injury, discomfort, and pain. These are typically felt as pain and or blank spaces on the body. People don't tend to say things like, my hips are stiff, but my arms feel really good. They usually say, my hips hurt and my arms are fine. So the gross sensation in this, it's pretty, so the thing about being very aware of the body just through pain and sensation that's stepping forward, discomfort, is like a first layer. It's not growth, it's the first layer. It's in it as far as, like, being able to consciously access it. It's the one that, like, steps forward with the, like it's it's, like, with purpose. Um, yeah. The next layer is this subtle so this is body processes like, heartbeat, breath, digestion, circulation. These can be sensed if we pay attention to them. And then the third layer, we're pointing to is the sublime, which is the emblem, which we've talked about. And this is and we'll talk more about the like witness, but this is actually not even that. It's like what the witness can perceive. So stay tuned for more on the witness. So the emblem. So the full body presence and essence that can feel twinkly, transcendent, and calm. Sometimes we can feel this when we're tired and lie down to rest, like ah. When we wake up well rested after a massage or intimacy, it's a blissful, subtle, full body sensation. And this sensation is often, attributed to like circulation because it's the first at like accessing it initially is usually like after exertion to feel like your entire body is like the aliveness of it. But that sensation is actually available all the time. It's happening right now. And these layers are really matters of attention. So it's like the level of concentration and attention that one is directing towards the physical sense of the body. And I think one of the things for, like, the gross one of the reasons I think that people are, like, not excited to, like, kind of go deeper into this kind of, like, looking and exploration and just presence with yourself is that with the gross layer, the first layer is about discomfort. So it's like, "Oh, I'm trying to look for more of that," where it's, and even for some folks, the feeling the circulation, feeling the heartbeat, feeling digestion is, like, cringy, it, like, feels uncomfortable. There's, like, kinda like, "Oh, that's my guts and stuff." So, yeah, that's just a thing. But the breakthrough in this, when you're getting to that sense of being able to sit, even, for some folks who've done some level of meditation that gets into this, but Savasana is like a portal to potentially accessing the sensation of kind of just this sort of heightened, like, sensory without pain or stimulation. It's like the simple I think it was Ken Wilber who had this thing he called "The Simple Feeling of Being." He wrote a book about that, and I think that's probably what he's talking about, is this. So, okay, so these 2 paragraphs are really good, so get ready. I really enjoyed reading these yesterday, to myself. Silence for anyone watching. So, okay, so when we let go of intellectual restrictions, we can experience a greater sense of freedom and become more joyful and prosperous with greater clarity. The seventh hub is the locus of inquiry, where we expand the electrifying capacity to tolerate the tension of nuance and paradox, and in which transformation and transcendence are made possible. As the connection to conscious creation, this hub makes us uniquely human. It's where we wonder and ask about alternatives, optimizations, and creation. It makes the method, capital M, referring to Pranayama method, possible through conscious reclamation of and intervention in the nervous system programming that has already been set in motion. So, one of the many paradoxes of this hub is to fully accept yourself and engage in a process of evolution, growth, and change. In On Becoming a Person, psychologist Carl Rogers wrote, The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that just came to mind was, like, the idea of, like, a rose blooming, and that it's kind of like a blossoming, which is to say that the bud is not something that you want to change. There's nothing wrong with it, you know? And even if it has, like, some bruises or there's, like, a whatever, it's like the blossoming of it is not to say that there's anything wrong with those petals, because 'cause they'll sort of fall away in terms of the greater actualization of this. And to also point to, this hub the correlation to this hub is with the 7th chakra, which is, the, Vedics called the thousand-petaled lotus, and that relates also to this unfolding of infinity, and you have folks who, with their first openings, like the first openings of consciousness, like the first revelations, it's like seeing things and being like, "Oh, I've arrived. I found the thing. I had a breakthrough." It's very common. People will be like, "I had my awakening." Like, see that on social media. People are like, "I had my awakening." And it's more that it's thousands of petals. It's a continuing unfolding, that, has this infiniteness, like, it has this infinity quality to it. But it isn't to say that there is a state that you're in which is being, rejected. It's like from that state that there's the unfolding. Yeah. So, interruptions in this hub cause feelings of fundamental unworthiness, such as believing yourself to be flawed or full of sin. You are not changing to correct for any perceived imperfection and or impurity. You're not flawed or broken. You change like a flower that continues to blossom. It changes in a process of evolution and growth. The belief that you're not worthy of love and attention, that your ideas and thoughts are not interesting, that you can only enjoy pleasure once you have earned it, are all examples of adaptations from lower hubs that are emphasized and expressed as belief systems in the 7th hub. So, this is how transcendence and redemption can happen. In the 7th hub, we find hope in the consciousness that allows us to imagine, to know new options, and to expand and evolve. It's where change becomes possible. Yeah, I had this weird thing, like, I forgot. Oh, yeah, I was watching a show last night that was, like, set in the '90s, and I was noticing that, like, yeah, I was noticing how so many things are different, right? So, to do, like, a time like, to view a different time, it's like you've got consumer products, people of, like, different clothing, different styles, different haircuts, like, the, furniture, the cars, the food, I mean, it's just and so, it occurred to me because it's kind of like the idea to go back to something isn't to just get, a can of, Del Monte fruit cocktail. It's literally like an entire world is created of, like, an infinite number of, like, disparate inputs that kind of, like, create the feeling, like the music, the, entertainment, the, like, things p the new, like, whatever, like, and that is, like, in our role of creation, is that each of us, like, in this sort of evolution is playing this part in impacting the thing that speaks to us. And so the idea of like, how we evolve is that it's like this it's this collaboration of this evolution, and so that everyone is sort of like contributing to, like a different picture on a wall, or a, different cushion, or like different fill in a cushion, like whatever, like that this kind of and this is the thing that makes us uniquely human, as in I think the last chapter or the chapter before, pointing to the How to Fly a Horse book that talks about the thing that makes us uniquely human isn't it's not our opposable thumbs or other things that have opposable thumbs. It is this very specific impetus to sort of see potential and optimize for that and create, like that is what makes us human. And in this particular hub, it is our ability to understand and know that allows the possibilities of what we have for creation. And this is the hub where it starts. In chapter 12, we'll talk about that more. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Next we'll have initial development, and then we get into the basics for this hub. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things I've already talked about this, but I'm gonna repeat myself, is that the notion of meditation in terms of concentration, as like with Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, there is just almost no pointing to like the physical practice of yoga. It's like 2 sutras or something, like very little. And most, if anything, there's more on like breath work, but ultimately that it is about this process of drawing the senses inward. And that, so the work the work that's been done in the earlier hubs supports reducing the noise that allows for greater peace. This like hub has a lot of like the peace aspect of it and concentration. And there is a very definitive quality that happens in this hub that is it's not concrete in terms of like pointing to something very specific about a person. It's actually like a quality. That's yeah. So yeah, more on that some other time. Okay, so I will see you next time. Thank you so much for coming along. Again, as I said, like any comments I'll answer. Yeah, there haven't been any, so I haven't been answering any. So yeah, any interaction with this is really appreciated. I love it, but just watching, if that is your thing, is also totally on board. And yeah, I think that's it for what I've got for you for right now. So thank you for coming along, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.